Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 376 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels, coming to you from frigid, cold Sandusky, Ohio, down to minus 18 Celsius, minus 15 Celsius this morning, real air temperature. I'm bringing you our next, I believe this is the 16th preview episode for 2025. And in just a moment, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by AFL journalist Michael Whiting from afl.com.au, also the co-host with my first guest from this year, Dom Fay, on the Roar Deal. And Michael covers both the Brisbane Lions and the Gold Coast Suns for afl.com.au. Absolutely thrilled to have him on. Now, folks, don't forget you can give my podcast a follow over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. If you click on that follow button, it'll pop up on the screen. You can subscribe to the mailing list so that when new episodes come out, they'll be in your inbox within just a few minutes of when they get released. And also, if you like the show, it'd be a huge help if you could leave a review on your favorite podcast host, or you can leave that also right on my website as well. And if you really like the show and you want to help out, you can certainly share an episode or tell your friends about it. Word of mouth is really the best way to help my podcast grow. I can't exactly go knocking on doors throughout Australia, being that I'm on the other side of the planet right now. So, really looking forward to this discussion with Michael, and let's go ahead and jump into it again with Michael Whiting from afl.com.au. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely ecstatic to have my next guest with me. He is a journalist working for afl.com.au in the Brisbane and Gold Coast area. He's also one of the co-hosts along with Dom Fay of the Roar Deal. And of course, we are talking about Mr. Michael Whiting. And Mr. Whiting, Michael, how are you doing today, sir?
Well, thanks, Craig. Great to be on, following in Dom's footsteps. So
Yeah.
can't wait to have a chat. Can't wait to have a chat about the Suns.
Well, I've had Dom both times I've had Dom on. He's been in the United States. He's happened to be
Yeah,
kept me at the tail end of a trip when I've had him on. So yeah, it's been, and he's a delightful gentleman. Also, just
he is.
just really
Mm,
really you know just very grounded and has so many. It's like such a varied number of interests in that sort of thing. And
mm,
I know you're extraordinarily involved in running and that sort
yep.
of thing as well. I do. I'm 61. I'm kind of interested in doing a lot of walking. The running part,
Yeah.
not something I'm probably going to do a whole lot of anymore, but I do get my share of walking in. So we're here to talk about your 1A club, if you will, the Gold Coast Suns, as you are a lifelong Brisbane supporter. But
Mm.
as you said off air, you love this club as well. You helped cover this club for the league. Um, I think this is a club that a lot of people maybe who are in the know kind of have some pretty serious aspirations for this year,
Mm.
but there are a lot of people who are thinking, it's Gold Coast. They're not that nothing's going to happen up there. So what's the more accurate position to be in there, do you think?
I think it's fair to have decent expectations on them this year. They've
Okay.
been in the league for, I should know this straight away, shouldn't I? Is this year 14 or year 15? I think this is year 15. Like they haven't
Since
made the
2011,
top
yeah.
eight yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2011 was year one. So I believe this is year number 15, and they have not made the top eight yet. So I understand people rolling their eyes and thinking, it's just Gold Coast. We know what's going to happen.
Hmm.
They've shown that over their entire history. But, and we, as in the media, guys like myself, have said for the last 2 years, this is the year for them to make a jump.
Right,
It does
right.
feel like that this year. As I'm sure we're going to get into, they've got enough experience on their list now. They've
Hmm.
got this young core of players that have sort of come through together and, um, yeah, been together for the last 4 or 5 or 6 years. And that's in in this competition, that's enough collective experiences together to justify a move up the ladder. It is a
Yeah.
very even competition, as you know, though. So
Yeah.
it's not a given by any stretch, but there's no reason they won't be better than last year. And they're only a couple of games outside the eight. So I think they should
Right,
be right
right.
there.
Yeah, we were out, the preview that I did last night was with St. Kilda, and we were discussing that
Mm,
you could probably say that there are maybe three, maybe four clubs that probably don't have a legitimate
mm,
shot of playing finals. But the other ones, you could almost put all of their like little ping pong balls into a bag and pull
yep.
out eight of them and go, yeah, that could literally be the eight. It
Yeah,
really could be, and you wouldn't
you're
necessarily
right.
be wrong.
No, I think Dom said this, and I totally agree. When we had a chat on our podcast a few weeks ago, he said, "Oh, you could almost imagine any team coming anywhere between third and 14th, and it wouldn't shock you if
No,
Adelaide
you're
finished the
right.
home and away season third or 14th. None would really shock you."
Yeah,
And you're right. I think there is only three, maybe four teams that wouldn't
yeah.
have genuine expectations of making the eight. That's definitely the Suns. They've got Damien Hardwick. It's his second year. They've got they've added a couple of pieces that he thinks can help,
Hmm.
and the pieces are in place. There's one or two question marks, I think, in their forward line, but
I
they've
was,
got a very good team, a very talented team,
yes.
and I hope they make the jump this year. I'm
Well,
willing it into existence.
well, do you think that he has the club looking more like what he thinks a final side should look like now? Has he take like an exponential leap forward as far as that goes compared to his first year there? Because I remember when he came in, I don't
Mm,
remember the percentage, but it was a rather high percentage where, we have a certain percentage of our first premiership,
yep.
side on this list. And I think there were a lot of people going, have you looked at your list?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he said we've got 80% of our premiership
I
list
couldn't
in this
remember the
room.
number off the top of my head, but it
That
was
was
a
his
pretty
line.
high number. Yeah. I
It
mean,
was.
so has
So
he added to that 80% now?
yeah, I think he would think they're pretty close.
Okay.
He had a very good look at everyone last year. I think he played 38 or 39 players got a run
Hmm.
last year. So I certainly wouldn't say that was just to have a look at everyone. I think that was genuinely experimenting, trying to find out his best combinations, players' best positions. And he did have to do a bit of exploring and he learned a few things. He learned that he wasn't happy with his half back line. That was a part
Yeah.
of the ground that he rotated a heap of players through. And then they went and got Daniel Rioli from Richmond and John Noble from Collingwood for that specific role. And I think we learned from Damien Hardwick last year the type of player he likes. And that was probably exemplified by moving Jack Lukosius to Port Adelaide. And now Jack, a really nice player, and
Hmm.
I still think he's got a very good career in front of him. But it's just not a Damien Hardwick type of player. He loves his forwards to be contested marking, sort
Right,
of
right.
not bullies, but bullocking type of players, I think, like a bit more hard at it. And Jack's a bit more of a finesse player. So I thought that was sort of emblematic of the type of player that he likes and the type of player he thinks will help that team play finals footy. So not many changes in the big scheme of things, but I reckon he would think that they're maybe 90 to 95% towards a list that should contend for a premiership.
Okay. Do you think do you think there's anybody down at the AFL house that has said or is thinking, and they may not want to say it out loud, boy, with all the investment we've made in this
Mm.
club, we sure need them to play finals soon.
Oh yeah, I would think that for sure, Craig.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen they came in, and I don't. It's hard to not compare the two clubs. They came in 1 year ahead of Greater Western Sydney.
Yep, yep.
Now they had different concessions when they came into the league, and I think the Giants got a little more of a leg up. They had a couple of goes at the draft, and there's a few differences in the way that the clubs were established. But the bottom line is the Giants have made finals, I think maybe 7 times. They've made a grand final, preliminary
Yeah,
finals. Like
yep.
they've been a very successful club on the field,
Hmm.
probably still struggling to make an imprint in that part of the country off the field. But and the Suns haven't made it once. We haven't seen
Right,
them
right.
play one final.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think there would be a lot of people at AFL House, a lot of the hierarchy thinking, gee, we have invested a lot in this club and we want to see a little bit of return on that investment. And the stuff off the field on the Gold Coast, and I probably don't want to get bogged down and sound like a AFL
Real
apologist
estate
here.
agent.
Yeah, but the code is going fantastic. Broadly speaking, the numbers of clubs and teams and players on the Gold Coast
Yeah.
has skyrocketed in the last 10 years. So from that perspective, you say, oh, it's a big tick, right? Like that's one reason the Gold Coast were established. Let's cash in on this booming population and make
Uh-huh.
them fall in love with our sport. And that's largely happened. But you know what makes it even better is having success on the field. And that's what
Yeah,
the
yeah.
AFL will want for sure.
So, and I want to, while we're talking about the community of Gold Coast, and I'll come back to this other thing in a minute here.
Mm.
Do you think that if they start to have some success, that Gold Coast could become a destination club? Could they almost be kind of like
Oh,
a northern version? And I'm gonna toot my own club's horn because Geelong
mm,
seems to be a bit of a destination club where
yep.
they're able to attract a certain type of player who want to get out of the maybe the bubble of
Yep.
Melbourne. So if you got a player
Yep.
who's, is maybe a really, really talented player, but just the whole idea of being in the huge city
Mm.
where everybody knows, it's kind of like, the TV show Cheers where everybody knows your name. Um, you know, where yes, I mean, yes, it's still cordial, but are there going to be players that are going to say, you know what, just the lifestyle on the Gold Coast might be just a
Oh,
little bit better?
without doubt. I think that firstly, I think the community is begging out for success. There's been
Hmm.
a lot of clubs in national sporting competitions in Australia that have come out of the Gold Coast and not succeeded and folded. There's been teams in the national soccer competition, the this national rugby league competition, but no one's had success on the Gold Coast. That community just wants to get behind a winning team. So
Yeah.
there's a carrot there for the Suns. But in terms of
Yeah.
players, you're right. I think a great example is up the road where I'm from in Brisbane was Joe Danaher. He
Hmm.
was a huge name at a huge club in Melbourne at Essendon.
One of the biggest footy family
Yeah,
names of all time.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
he just walked into this huge club with huge expectation, and he's a very shy, unassuming guy who does not like the spotlight. And he
Hmm.
came to Brisbane at the end of the 2020 season and was like a new man. Like he was not shy in saying that that was a major reason that he moved was to get out of the fishbowl. And you can, I wouldn't say you'd walk around unnoticed in
Yeah.
southeast
Yeah.
Queensland because the sport's popular and particularly in Brisbane now they're the reigning premiers. But largely compared to being in Melbourne, you're relatively unnoticed and you can sit in cafes without, you know, 30 sets of eyeballs staring at you and
Yeah.
walk around the streets without everyone turning their heads. So absolutely, I think there's a good percentage of players that would see value in, and the Gold Coast is an amazing lifestyle, great
Hmm.
place to live, a lot of outdoor activity, some of the best beaches I would say in the world. Like, why wouldn't you want to live there? If you can come to a club that's having success and they're on the Gold Coast,
Yeah.
bang, they're
That
wait,
makes
they
sense.
could very well, yeah.
Makes sense. So, the other thing that I really wanted to, before we start diving into the specifics of the club and just kind of a generality thing here is, that there seems to be, and this goes back to an article that you wrote a couple of days ago on um I just jotted some notes down here about, with the draft concessions that the club had received
Mm,
back in 2019 when
yep,
Matty Rowell came in and then Noah Anderson came
yep,
in and Anderson's now the captain. But the club had they had the concessions with regards to like their
mm,
academies and things like that.
yep,
But it's really interesting seeing the Victorian based clubs get upset about the academies
yeah.
when and I look
It's
at that and I'm thinking, wait a minute, Gold Coast is going to have to wait another 15 to 20 years, if at least, before they get involved in the whole father son thing.
that's right.
Okay. So there needs to be something that tries to balance this out a little bit. There's,
Yep.
there's not, a 60-year-old day costs that played for them, or there's not,
Mm,
you know, there's nothing like that coming through the pipeline immediately. So, I mean, I think the league, in my opinion, I think if they're going to do things like father son, they had to find something to balance it out for both your club, for GWS, to allow. I think even that happened with even Sydney, if I'm not
yep.
mistaken, when they
That's
came in to
correct. Yep.
to allow them to really just try to to get some roots growing
Yep.
and be able to flourish. So I mean, I
Uh,
it just it I kind of laugh at
yeah.
it when I see those clubs getting upset about it. And
I'm glad you say that. I mean, I'm glad you can see that from the other side of the world because it's very contentious here. Like it's a
yeah,
contentious rule decision, but simply there's not the volume of players, junior players in Queensland and in New South Wales that Victoria and Western Australia and South Australia have. So when it comes to I'll phrase it this way. How many times have you heard in the media, oh, a player wants to return to his home state of Queensland? It just doesn't happen because there's just not that many players. But
that's a good point.
we,
Yeah.
we look at the other way. How many players want to return to their home state of Victoria and
Uh-huh.
I mean,
or South
Gold Coast
Australia,
have,
or yeah,
or South Australia or Western Australia. I mean, Gold
yeah,
Coast
yeah,
have lost a ton of players over the years simply because there's just so many more players coming from those
other
more
states.
traditional football states. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's one little leg up that the Queensland clubs have. And they're balancing that out now. The clubs will have to pay a little bit more to retain those academy players this year. And I think that's fair enough. But
yeah.
um, I generally, and I live up here, so I've probably got a better lens on it than I think they've got it right. Like I do
Hmm.
think they've got it right. The Queensland and New South Wales clubs should have access to those academy players, and the other sports up here. If a 15 or 16-year-old is deciding which sport should I play, I'm about to get into that age bracket where I've got to make a decision. Am I
Right,
playing
right.
Australian rules or am I playing rugby league? Well, the National Rugby League clubs here can sign kids into their academy. They can sign them from 15, 16, 17 years old. So
Wow.
the AFL, the Australian, we had to line things up a bit. We had to make it appealing for
Hmm.
players to stay in our sport, and a little pathway into playing for the Lions or the Suns was a pretty good way of doing that.
And that seems to make a lot of sense. Plus, if you got a lot, I think that it may actually attract a slightly different type of player in some
Mm,
aspects. Also, if you've got a kid who's played, because I think if you're in Victoria, you're not necessarily having as many kids playing rugby. You've
no,
got more.
that's
You
right.
got more. You got it. It's going to be more. I would imagine
They're
more
all playing Australian
basketball,
rules. Yep.
cricket,
Yep.
footy.
Yep.
But you're going to probably get. You'll get cricket, rugby, and maybe footy up there.
Yep.
Maybe some soccer mixed in both places there. But you just kind of the mindset. Just like the build, the body shape of rugby players tend to be
Yeah.
usually a little different than footy players as well. So, I mean,
Absolutely. Yep. They
it's a.
do.
I mean, that could certainly bode well in turning in some of your players into some real tackling machines up there.
Yeah. 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 Yep. Well, it's fun. You speak to a lot of the like the academy guys that get drafted by the clubs up here, and
Uh-huh.
a lot of them did play rugby as a junior, and that's their favorite part. Like they've grown up tackling. That's part of their favorite part of the game of our game of Australian rules footy. Like they love to tackle. So
Right.
yeah, there's some traits that cross over, but you're right in terms of the body shape and the different type of athletes. They're vastly different.
So I guess the big thing that we need to address that it's out there. It's been talked about. A certain club supposedly was having secret meetings with somebody recently. Um, um, is Matt Rowell's contract situation going to become a distraction for the club this year? And again, first of all, I don't, I'll be honest. Would I love to have him playing in the hoops? Of course I would. I would be crazy
Mm,
to say
of
not that I
course.
wouldn't. But I think for the continuity and the importance of
Mm,
the league, I hope that he's has enjoyed his time there enough to, if he chooses to commit to stay up there on the Gold Coast. Maybe Noah Anderson being there, having played with him,
mm,
in juniors and that sort of thing, might help to keep him there. I don't know of his personal life, if there's somebody that he's betrothed to up there that he doesn't want to, disrupt that at all, or
mm.
none of my damn business. But um, I kind of hope he stays there. I really do.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. Like, I could be wrong here. You could play this back in 6 months, and I could look like an idiot. But I'm pretty sure he'll stay. Um, I don't blame him for taking meetings with other clubs. Like
Yeah.
he's for his specific role, probably very similar to Joel Selwood. I'm not saying he's as good as Joel Selwood, but it's that similar type of inspirational in and under,
Hmm.
knock his own teammates out of the way to get the footy type of player.
Yeah.
Not many better in the competition than Matty Rowell. So for what he does, he's probably as good as anyone in the competition. So I can understand why he's looking around. He's entering year 6, I think. So he'll be 6 years into his career, and there'll be a number of big offers coming for it. But he does. I know he loves the Gold Coast,
Yeah.
as in the location and the club. Like he loves them both. So I would be very, very surprised if he left, but I do not blame him one bit for fielding offers and seeing what's out there. Because if there is an enormous discrepancy between the offers, well, you have to consider it. Like you've
Yeah.
only got a finite time in this career, so But he does love it. He's very, as you mentioned, he's great mates with Noah Anderson. He's very good mates with Ben King. Like these guys that sort of came to the club at the same time are
Right,
very
right.
tight, and
Yeah,
I'm sure they won't want to have gone through the tough years to walk out when it looks like it's about to turn.
yeah. And he would be a tough hole to fill if he was not there
Very,
anymore. Yeah, he would be a very
yeah, yeah.
difficult hole to fill there. So
But in saying that, like they would want to win this year, Gold Coast, and that has been the
yeah,
chat.
yeah.
And Damien Hardwick, rightly, I had a chat to Hardwick a few weeks ago, and he rightly said, "Well, we've got to fulfill our end of the bargain now and win matches because Matt
Hmm.
doesn't want to play at a losing club; he wants to play at a winning club."
Right, right.
So if Gold Coast are inexplicably 3-7 after 10 rounds, well, and Matt Rowell hasn't signed, well, then maybe we've got a different conversation. So they
I
have got to
go
fulfill
ahead.
their end of the bargain and start and win and prove that they're a club on the rise.
All I'm gonna say is that I looked at the first five, actually the first six games of this year.
So high.
It's
Generous.
there's a very good opportunity to hit the
Mm.
ground running this year
Yep.
if things go the way they are capable of having them go. I mean,
Yep.
it's with you got Essen and West Coast, the D's. So I think that the D's are going to be a down year this year. I just think that
Mm.
seems to be like there's a lot of dysfunction there. You got the Crows who, Matty Nix realizes, hey, if we don't play finals this year, I'm probably looking for another job next year. And then you
Mm.
got the Roos, and then you got the Tigers in the sixth round. So I mean,
Yep.
there are you're gonna have a lot of young, hungry kids you're playing against, but they may be prone to
If
making mistakes, and there should be
Yep.
opportunities for you there to get a decent number of wins in those first six rounds.
Well, they probably have to because
Yeah,
if you want to play finals, I don't want to put a number of wins on it, but when you're playing North Melbourne, Richmond, and West Coast, they're games you simply have to win if you expect to play finals. And then those other teams you mentioned there, Essendon, Melbourne, Adelaide, have all probably got expectations to make finals, but
right.
they're, without trying to rank them, but they're all probably in a similar boat to Gold Coast. So they're
Yep.
the teams you have to beat if you want to
Yeah.
finish above them, obviously. So they would want to get to the end of 6 matches with a positive win-loss ledger.
Yeah.
And like you say, the opportunity's there and the draw will become more difficult after that. So they do, as you say, they do have to hit the ground running. And
Now,
the AFL has, I would say, looked after them with that fixture. That's a pretty generous opening 6 weeks.
although only two of those games are on the Gold Coast.
Yeah. Yep.
so so there is that. They do have,
There is that.
three out of their last five are at home, but it's a they got a bit of a tough run home as well there. But yes, it they're gonna earn it. That's for certain. That's
Yep.
for certain. Yeah.
Yep.
So um can it be a successful year if they just miss out on finals? Can enough good things happen to where the club can say this was a really good year, but something, we got bogged down in the number nine spot, for example?
Yeah. I mean, that would be a hard sell, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to pitch forward to the end of the year, have them finish ninth. If you're, I mean, they were clearly a class below the top eight last year. I think of the number of matches where they were sort of out of the reckoning by the time the fourth quarter rolled around. They were not
Yeah.
close to Brisbane. They were not close to Sydney. They were not close to the Giants. So I think if you can
Well,
see,
to be fair, they weren't close to Geelong either, but it was a score you didn't
but
mind.
that's that is true. That was an amazing night. I was there that
Oh,
night. That was
I'm so
I
glad
couldn't believe what I was seeing.
the Cats are not going to Darwin this year. That's Hawthorn, Western Bulldogs. Good luck.
Yeah, yeah, that's another little advantage the Suns do have. That
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
genuine home ground advantage in Darwin. But I think if you can see that they're very competitive against those top 6 teams,
yeah,
and maybe there's some untimely injuries or um, I guess factors like that that might prevent them from winning the game or two extra that they need to get into the eight, you might be able to sell it as a win there. if you see progress from guys like Bailey Humphrey and Mac Andrew and Sam Flanders again, and if you see some progress from those guys, you could sell it as a win. But I think generally you probably have to make finals for them to sell it as a successful year.
Yeah. I think you're probably right on that. But um
And it's a hard line, isn't it? Like we just
yeah.
said, 14,
Yeah.
14 or 15 clubs, rightly or wrongly, would expect that, hey, we've got aspirations of making the top 8 this year. So there's going to be 6 or 7 disappointed clubs at the
Yeah.
end of the season.
And clubs
And it's a hard bar.
yeah, and you being one of the most recent clubs to come into the comp, I think have to be looking at the next couple of years realizing there's another club getting ready to come in.
Oh,
And they're
yeah.
going to get a lot of these concessions that we got,
Mm,
which are going to make it more difficult for us to refill our coffers, to put together maybe the list that we want to put together, or
yep.
we may end up losing some players to that club as well. So it's almost like you have to kind of strike while the iron is hot, if you will.
Yeah, you do. Everyone knows they've got a couple of years before Tasmania
Yeah,
comes in. And I don't expect this will be Gold Coast, but it would be really poor timing to be bottoming out in the next
yeah,
couple of years. If you're a struggling club down in that bottom 4 in 2 years' time, it'll be a
yeah,
not good timing because, as you said, the Tassie, we don't know what concessions they'll get, but they'll likely get a pretty good hand at the draft, and
yeah,
they'll get plenty of other concessions. So it'll be a difficult and probably slower rebuild for
yeah.
those clubs at the bottom. I don't expect that'll be Gold Coast. I expect they'll be,
So,
on the way up and hopefully in the top 8 comfortably by that stage. But you don't know.
right,
We
right,
don't know. As you said,
right.
they might have a couple of players picked off, or a lot of these Raul Anderson and Ben King and all these guys will be 8 and 9 years in, and they might be looking elsewhere by that stage if they haven't had the success they hope. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's an interesting couple of years ahead with Tasmania on the horizon.
it is definitely going to be. Now, who are which of these new players coming in are you the most excited about having on the Suns list? Because you brought in a lot of veteran players
Mm,
this year, and you had a lot leave as well, but you brought a lot of them in as
yeah.
well. But
Daniel Rioli, I think. Yeah,
okay,
he's the one I'm most excited. Seeing he's had a couple of little setbacks in the preseason. He had a little surgery on a knee problem just before Christmas, but
okay,
just the small bits I've seen in training in the last few weeks, you think, boy, this guy is so fast. When he puts the ball under his arm and runs from half back and takes a bounce, and it's only training and it's only playing against themselves, but
right, right,
it's so exciting and just adds a totally different dimension to what the Suns have had. And we've seen Damien Hardwick, of course, he coached Daniel Rioli at Richmond for a number of years, and
yep,
Rioli was a terrific part of their 3 premierships under Hardwick at Richmond. And he's the guy I'm most excited about because he's got speed, like he's got legs speed when he runs, and he is a beautiful kick. Like he's
hmm
got this dual threat, I suppose. And I just can't wait to see what element that adds to the Suns. They haven't really had a player like that. Maybe Lockie Weller before he had his knee problems, that type of player. But the way the game has sort of moved the last few years, you just need your most creative, best ball users coming off halfback, and that's what they've gone and got. And I can't wait to see a fully fit Daniel Rioli and what he adds.
yeah. Um, you know, I was kind of curious about your take on your episode that I think came out today with Damian Barrett, dealing with talking about the
Mm,
new coaches and new spots with where you get this plethora of
yeah.
veteran coaches that
Mm,
are not working right now, and where they might end up. And the reason I brought this up is I wanted to mention and I wanted to ask you, since we're talking about Gold Coast, do you think that Stuart Dew ever finds himself with another opportunity as a senior coach?
yeah, that's a really good question, Craig. I have briefly thought about it. It feels very similar to, I'll compare it to a guy I saw up close, I guess, Michael Voss. So Vossi
Mm,
coach was a Brisbane legend, coached the Lions. He was very young when he coached the Lions.
Yeah.
He might have been 33 or 34 when he got the job. Like he was extremely young. Coached the Lions for 5 years, played finals in the first year, made some mistakes, bottomed out, and he got the sack. And that was in 2013. And then he went away and was an assistant coach for, geez, I want to say 7 or 8 years under Ken Hinkley at
Hmm.
Port Adelaide. Went away and did this long stint between, and but was clearly more equipped and a better man
Yeah.
manager and a better whatever. Now, Stewie G's not quite like that because he actually served quite a long apprenticeship before he got the job at the Suns. But
Right.
I could see something like that where Stewie's now going to Brisbane.
Yep.
Brisbane will presumably be up there and reasonably successful for a few more years. He learns a few things there. Yeah, I can see an opportunity popping up. Yeah, I think he'll have to wait a while. He might have to get some experience elsewhere and at Brisbane and maybe another club after that.
Yeah.
And then it'll depend what sort of hunger he's got. Like it obviously, I haven't spoke to him in great depth, but uh, it was a pretty low time for him. I mean, any coach that
Right.
loses their job,
Yeah.
it's a
Because I
pretty
mean,
low time. But it was pretty brutal the way he was treated, I think. And
yeah. I mean, well,
um,
that it seems to happen an awful lot. I mean,
yeah,
and what I don't think his was necessarily as bad as what happened to say Brett Ratton with St. Kilda.
no,
I mean, that
that's
boy,
true.
oh,
That's
and I was shocked when I learned about the fact, that they'd signed him to that long contract, and then
yep.
the club doesn't have to honor it.
No,
I was
I think they paid him out six
like,
months or something.
yeah,
Yeah, the
that was
contract was worthless.
yeah. I just
Yeah,
that's
it
I'm
sucks, and
yeah
it's a poor rule.
yeah. I
So
just think if you're
I
going to
mean,
commit to somebody like that, you should be
a
required to
hundred.
figure out how to pay them.
Totally agree with you. Now, Stewie had another. So he, I mean, he wasn't. I don't think he was blindsided, but I think I would say what I don't want to talk on his behalf, but I think if I was him, the part that would have hurt. So he
Hmm.
was sacked maybe 8 weeks before the end of the 2023 season, I want to say. And like immediately, the Suns hierarchy are on a plane to go and woo Damien Hardwick. And
In
it just
Italy,
seemed
didn't they
it
go? Didn't
seemed
they go
in
to Italy
Italy.
to talk to
That's
him? Yeah,
they went to Italy. So, and it all happened very quickly and it all seemed a little convenient. And I would have, if I'm Stuart Dew, that would have felt like a kick in the guts to me.
yeah.
I'm out the door. You've signed Damien Hardwick 5 seconds later, and that all just felt a little convenient to me. But so I think Stewie Dew was a little probably disillusioned, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
understandable, and took a bit of time to get over it. And but now he's come back into the fold. He hasn't had to leave states. He's got a family and kids. So that's the other element when you ask about will he get another coaching
Right.
opportunity?
It depends on if you
Just
want to put your
depends.
children. Yeah, that's a good
That's
point.
right. He's
Well,
got
yeah,
children at school,
and
and
he and
they're the
he
only there's
well,
only two clubs up here, Gold Coast
well
and Brisbane.
he's with Brisbane as a
He is
part-time
with
coach
Brisbane.
right now. And if I'm
They've upgraded him to full time now, so
okay,
he's an assistant coach. He's the forward line coach at Brisbane, so he's he'll learn a lot there. He'll learn a lot
yeah,
and give a
and
lot.
I know that you did a piece recently about Chris Fagan and how long he's planning on coaching. If
Yeah,
I'm not mistaken. So I have not listened to that yet, so I don't know what the answer to that was. So maybe he's found himself in a really good position right here. Who
yeah,
knows?
yep. It's a good point. So Chris has got this year and two more, so
Yeah,
he's got 3 more years.
yeah.
And who knows? Like Chris, certainly hasn't put a finish line on when he coaches, but
Hmm.
what he did say is that Brisbane will be the only club that he coaches at. Because I'd asked him about Tasmania and the prospects, and because he comes out of contract just as Tasmania come into the
Yeah.
competition, so it's a nice little timeline. But he said, no, like Brisbane's the only club I'll coach, and I think Chris will be 66 by then. I want to say,
Okay. A few years
and
older than me. Yeah. So
yeah, he's 60. Yeah, he's 63 at the moment, I think. I hope I
yeah.
haven't done a disservice for him there, but yeah, who knows what happens then? But you're right, like that might work out well for Stewie potentially.
So back to the club itself. Where is the club going to get the additional scoring that it's going to need? Because relying as heavily on Ben King as they're going to have to. at this point in time. It kind of like what St. Kilda in some ways are going to have had to do with their um,
Mm.
his brother.
Yep.
In some ways, where's the additional scoring going to come from? Because it's who's
Well,
going to
yeah, mate, I think you've hit on the big question for the Suns this year
yeah.
because last year they probably got the ball in the front half of the ground and into scoring position inside 50 enough,
Hmm.
but they weren't able to transfer that into goals and into a winning score often enough. So I think Ben King kicked 50, did it? 55, I think, from memory last year. It was a big season. You
Yeah,
couldn't
I think
ask for much more out of him.
yeah, I think it was
So
55.
yeah, so I guess it's what's behind Ben King or what's beside Ben King. And they'll start with Jed Walter, who's entering year two, uh, physically very gifted, still has a lot to learn. I'm not sure how much we can expect out of him. We can expect more than we saw last year, though. And they're looking at this stage of, they're certainly flirting with the idea of playing Ben King, Jed Walter, and Ethan Reed. Ethan Reed's another young guy entering his
Hmm.
second year. So, and Ethan is a amazing athlete, 202 or 204 centimeters, runs as good as anyone on the team over distance, great at ground level, exciting prospect, all the rest. But again, very young. So I think it's going to fall on your medium to small size forwards as much as anything. I'm talking about um, Ben Ainsworth, Bailey Humphrey, another young guy, Leo Lombard, will come in. It is going to have to be scoring by committee
Hmm.
uh,
Well, and that can in
with
many
Ben King as a
cases
focal point.
that can in many cases make a club even more dangerous.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we look at Brisbane last year. I think Joe Danaher kicked 50 something goals, but really it was the strength of the committee that did it
Right,
for
right.
Brisbane. They
And I
got
and I
six or seven targets.
and that's a club that I wonder how they're going to replace him.
Yeah.
Eric Hipwood is a decent tall forward, but I'm
Mm.
not sure if Brisbane is ready to say, yeah, he's our number one
You're
guy.
our
I'm not
guy.
sure. I'm not sure if they're that confident. They're going to say it. They're going to put on a good
Yeah.
face, but I'm not sure if they're behind the scenes going, are we really sure about this? I
Yeah.
mean, because
So
he has the
they'll,
he has the
I mean,
potential to be a phenomenal one.
yeah, he does,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think in Brisbane's case, they'll try and have someone play the same way as Danaher, not to his
Yeah.
level, but just a
Yeah.
similar player. So a guy that they can target in the forward line, probably with less expectation that Sam Day or Henry Smith or Darcy Ford or whoever
Yeah.
plays in that forward role will mark it as much as Joe and kick as many goals as Joe, but someone that can at least make a contest and bring it to ground so that Cameron and Loman and McCarthy and Archie and whoever else is down there can profit from it. And that's probably what the Suns have to look at as well.
Yeah.
They just can't have Jed Walter being outmarked like he was sort of quite often in the second half of last season, and which was understandable. That's not a criticism of Jed. He was 18 years old,
Right.
playing against men for the
Yeah.
first time in his
You've got
life, and
you got
and all of a sudden, I think basically his forward line coach Brad Millis. We were talking to Jed and his forward line coach yesterday actually, and they talked about Jed improving his footy IQ, and
hmm.
his forward line coach Brad Miller said, "Well, when you're under 18s and you're bigger and faster than everyone, you can just rely on that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if the ball's put in space, let your athleticism do its thing, and you'll dominate. But all of a sudden, that was Jed Walter, and then he's come up against men that are just as quick and just
Yep.
as
Yep.
strong, if not stronger
Or
than
if
him, and
not
it's
stronger,
much more
because
difficult."
yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
So he's just got a lot to learn, and I'm sure he's learned a ton in the past few months. But they just need contests from those guys and more impact from Ben Ainsworth, Bailey
Yeah.
Humphrey, uh, Leo Lombard, and whoever else they decide to play as a small forward.
Okay. So what kind of a bold prediction do you have for the club? One that you're making that maybe some of the people that you work with are going to go and they don't and they're not they're
Oh,
not they're not necessarily up along the Gold Coast and they might be going, "Are you sure about that?"
yeah. Well, I guess if we look at broadly the team, I've just been bitten so many times. But if I just take away being gun shy because of
Uh-huh.
being bitten a few times by predicting that they'd make a jump. There's no reason they're not going to make a jump this year. Win 2 or 3 more games than they did last year, and that puts them into the realm
Should put
of
him in there. Yeah.
sixth,
Yep.
sixth, seventh, or eighth, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to stick. I'm going to. I guess my if it was to be bold about a player, and this guy's been my favorite player at the Suns for a few years, and I don't think the rest of the competition's quite woken up to him yet, is Will Powell. Um, they've put him in the leadership group this year.
Hmm.
He's a rebounding defender. Oh, I think he's a special, special player that I think there's no reason he shouldn't be in the conversation to be an All-Australian. Um, he'll benefit by having Rioli and Noble alongside him down there. Will is exceptional as an intercepting marker. He's, yeah, I can pretty confidently say he's the best kick in the team, best field kick in the team. I think he's going to make a big leap this year.
Okay.
That'd be,
Okay.
in terms of a player, that's where I'd go bold
Okay.
for him. And then I'm just crossing my fingers they make a jump as a team.
All right. So the Suns season for 2025 has come to an end, whenever that happens to be.
Yep.
Okay. Whether it's the end of round 24, whether it's after the first round of the finals, a prelim, a grand final.
Mm.
What headline, since I get to ask you about this, since this is what you do for a living,
It's unusual being on this
what
side.
yeah, what headline are you going to be writing after the final Suns game in 2025?
Well, I don't write the headlines, Craig, but
Okay, well, okay. Well, this time the editor
no,
is the
I
editor has
understand. I
decided, you know what,
understand.
we're gonna turn it over to you.
Yep.
It's your club. I'm going on vacation. It's been a long year.
Yep.
We're turning it over to you.
Monkey off the back.
Okay, okay,
Suns finally play in September.
okay.
Something like that. So
Good
that's,
deal. I
yeah. And again, it's like caught between, I'm a bit of a glass half full generally.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah,
I'm a little bit gun shy because of what's happened the past couple of years, the way
yeah.
they've sort of fallen away in the latter half of the year, the past couple of seasons. But when I look at it objectively, I do think they've got a list that's ready to go. The question mark is in the forward line, but
Yeah.
as we've just touched on, that'll be a tricky one to solve. But I love the way their defense, their midfield, their half forwards, like they are very close to a complete team.
Yeah.
Yep, they've got to show it and
No,
Hardwick system and all the rest of it. But I do think this is the year they'll make the jump.
I have to tell you, if I'm not mistaken, the preview that I did last year, which there was a couple of gentlemen that do a Suns podcast, I think we settled on Gold Coast last year for their headline. It was a little double entendre. Gold Coast develops a hard wick.
See, I'm not that clever. I like that.
So now I'm going to offer this up to you because I didn't mention this to you before, but I do generally do a few club specific trivia questions at the end of
Oh, okay.
each
Let's go.
preview. Do you want to give these a shot? I didn't mention this to you ahead of time here, so
Let's give him a shot. I can look
okay.
like a real goose.
Well, you know what? I think you're going to be okay on these. Okay, I think you will. I don't, I'm not asking, whether or not, Matty Rowell, begins his shoelaces with left over right or right over left or something like that. I'm not nothing like that happening here. Okay,
Okay.
not asking what's his favorite flavor of grass or anything like that. So, this was the only Suns player last year, and he played in 22 games to average more than 30 disposals per game.
Sam Flanders.
There you go. See, you're one for one. Yep.
I've
And
just
this is
wiped a bit of sweat off my brow.
yeah. Well, and this is actually my favorite stat in footy here. I love this stat. This player, he played 23 games, led the club with 8.6 one percenters per game, and he also led the club last year with over 9 one percenters.
Or I want to say Sam Collins.
You should say Sam Collins.
Is that right? Oh,
Yeah. So you're two for
he's a
two.
guy that I reckon. I actually reckon every team in the league would want Sam Collins.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just so reliable and so freaking good at his job.
Yeah,
He's amazing, and
it's
just signed on for an extra couple of years, which was great news for the Suns.
outstanding. Outstanding.
Mm.
Okay. So last year, Matt Rowell had 184 tackles,
Yep,
which is a lot. Did he have
lot.
more tackles than the number 2 and 3 players on the list combined, or not?
Oh my goodness. Oh boy, I'll say yes
I believe that I think I wrote the wrong damn number down here. I'm sorry.
because I
Let
know
me.
he was quite a way in
I
front, and
I think I wrote the wrong.
I don't
I wrote the wrong number down. I think it was. He had
I don't
184, and yes, he did because they had 168
yeah, I was gonna say I
combined.
don't
Yes.
picture Anderson, Flanders, etc. as and Miller as
Yeah, it was
big
Miller and
number
Graham.
tacklers.
Miller and Graham
Yep,
that combined for
and Will
168.
Graham.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. Okay. Which two clubs have the Suns defeated the most times in their history?
Oh, oh, I might be about to hit my first snag here, I reckon.
They have Bunnings. They have Bunnings up in the Gold Coast in Brisbane.
Let's they do. Mate, I love your references. That's great. I'll say North Melbourne
That's what. Yep,
as
11
one of
times.
them.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, and one.
That's
Come on,
one. And
Michael. Come
the
on.
other one they've beaten 8 times.
Yeah, the other one they've beaten eight
And
times.
I was a little surprised by this one, to be honest with you.
Oh, it's not them. It's not them. Gee, I'm blanking here. I am blanking. It's certainly not
Can
them or
can I give you a
them.
hint?
No, it's not Brisbane. They've beaten them six or seven, I reckon.
If you can't
Oh, you
if you
can't.
if you can't beat them, join them.
The Giants. No,
Richmond.
Richmond.
Yeah, that's why I said it
I
with
probably
Hardwick.
should have got that
If you
because
can't beat them, join them.
yeah, got you. That was a great clue. Because they beat them the first two or three times they played, and they're in 2011,
Yeah.
2012, certainly the first two times. And then I think there was quite a drought when Richmond were good, but I guess they have beaten them a lot recently. So beat them
Hmm.
twice last year. So yeah, probably should have got that one. But yeah, isn't that interesting?
Now, who's kicked more goals in their son's career, Ben King or Alex Sexton?
Uh, they're number two and three on the list. Let's go with Secco.
Oh, Ben
Alex
King,
Sexton. No, Ben King's
184
got him, has he?
184 to 164. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Okay. Uh, two really easy ones and one tough one here yet. Okay. So these two players led the club with more than 92% time on ground this past year.
I would say Collins and King.
Collins is right.
Ballard.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yep.
What's Ben King doing with that time off the ground? Come on, mate. You're a full forward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you should be able to. Yeah, you should be able to wear those. Yeah, have pants that have like a chair built in them. Just take a rest up there while they're getting the ball back up to you.
That's it.
Yeah, it's okay. Alrighty. Who led the club with 520 meters gained per game this past year?
Oh boy, 520 meters gained. I'm gonna go with a let's go with Noah Anderson.
There you go. Yep,
Bang.
that was okay. Now
I
this
was
may be
worried it
this.
might be I was worried it might be one of those sneaky little halfbacks that takes all the kick-ins and
Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could. It has been for a couple clubs. It has been. Yep.
yeah.
Okay, so who led the Suns in goals kicked in their inaugural season?
Gary Ablett. No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'll have one more guess. Let's go. Um, Gee, that is tough. Brandon Matera?
Danny Stanley.
Danny Stanley. You know what? His name flashed through my head, and I thought he can't have kicked that many.
Well, he didn't.
How many did he
It was
kick
only
about
20 goals, 18 behinds. So
20?
he didn't kick that many.
No, he didn't.
But
20
he still
actually surprises me. I'm surprised he
20
kicked
led.
20.
Yeah, 20 led the team. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think Gary Ablett might have been, he couldn't have been too far behind. 16 or 18. That's a great trivia question, that one.
Yeah.
Danny Stanley.
I love
That's a
asking it because it helps me to learn a little bit about
yeah.
this stuff as well. I mean,
No,
I
he,
have to.
he had a solid career with the Suns, I'd say, Danny. Yeah, in those early years.
I mean, this is. I have to tell you, this is in one of the shows that was on Fox Footy for a couple of years. I actually learned a lot from it. They had a game show on there. I don't know if you ever watched it called the Beep Test.
No, I can't
Fox
remember
Fox
seeing.
Fox
It
Footy had
sounds familiar, but I can't remember watching it.
they had a like a footy game show. Just ask like trivia questions and such on this game show, and it was actually I felt really righteous one day when I actually got three questions right in one show. It was like I know the answer to that one. I know that one.
How good.
It didn't happen very often for me there. So,
What a great
um,
way to learn.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and I'm such a I've become such a fan of this game, and I only watch my local NFL team as far as as far as football. And I'll watch like the local
Yeah.
college team, but that's it. Those are the only American sports I watch.
Yeah,
That's it.
really.
Yeah, I watch footy, and over the last couple of years, I've become a massive cricket fan as well.
Oh, mate, Trey,
So
you're talking my language.
so I have
An
my
honorary Aussie.
I keep my
Footy and cricket.
I keep
Oh,
my
I love that.
I actually had the author of the book. I had the author of the book on the podcast because he was one of the people that helped to get Major League Cricket here in the U.S. up and running a few years back. So we
Oh,
actually have
amazing.
professional cricket here too. So, Michael,
Yep.
I want to thank you so much for setting time aside for me this morning, man. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, mate.
You've been
I've
an
had
absolute
such
joy to
fun.
talk to. I enjoy listening to your work. I love listening. You reading your work as
Thank you.
well. You are you're a terrific journalist and I guess I only have one last question for you before we go.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to refer to you this because I don't know you well enough to call you by your nickname, but I understand that where the nickname came from, but
Yeah.
who originated the nickname?
You can call me that if you like.
Okay.
I don't think there's a person in the AFL that calls me Michael, actually. It's fish, fish, fish. So
Okay, so
it
where'd that come from?
actually, so a couple of people have asked me this, and I did think it actually came from the former media manager at the Gold Coast Suns. His name's
Okay.
Stephen Wilson.
Okay.
So Steve Wilson was a media manager at Carlton, I want to say from 2007 maybe to 2010. And he
Mm-hmm.
came up to the Suns in their first year in 2011. And I reckon it probably took a couple of years, and I'm not sure why or how, or whether he just came out with it, but it was
Yeah.
definitely Steve Wilson, the former Suns media manager, then went on to be their head of communications. And he was the guy that first called me that. And then it just sort of, like most nicknames, they just sort of catch on and the players start using it. And then the Brisbane players hear about it. They start using it and it sort of caught
Well,
on. But
and Mr.
yeah,
Barrett uses it all the time as well
he
on your
does.
podcast
Stamo loves
episodes as
that.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Absolutely does. So, yeah, but this
Yeah.
again,
Mate, I really appreciate the
this was a
kind words
pleasure.
too.
I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate the kind words, and yeah, I've had a lot of fun this morning. Botched a couple of your trivia questions,
You
but
know what?
got a bit to go away and learn. So
You didn't know they were coming. You didn't know they were
no,
coming. So, the one
no,
good thing is that you have a much smaller window in terms of
that I
questions that
do.
I can draw from. You know, I don't.
15 years or
Yeah,
14 years,
yeah. Although I do,
a lot of those
I don't.
Victorian clubs.
Yeah, I don't go. I don't. I try not to do anything before the year 2000 on a lot of them. Unless
Yeah.
unless it's some big name or something like that people might know. But
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, my guest has been Michael Whiting from AFL.com.au and from the Roar Deal. And where can people find you if they want to follow you on social media or if they want to follow your work?
Yeah, they can follow. You think I'd know this off the top of my head, wouldn't you? The best place to follow me probably is Twitter or X. Um, I should just go and check. So yeah, my handle is just my name at Michael Whiting. So that's probably the best place to follow me for footy stuff.
Okay.
I do have an Instagram account. That's Mike Whito, Mikewhito. But I don't post on Instagram a lot, to be honest. And it's mainly the odd running thing, Craig, or the odd
Yeah.
holiday or something. So a bit more personal stuff. But yeah, Twitter's probably the best place to find me if you're looking for footy information.
Okay. And AFL Daily, you're on there quite a bit as well. And
Yeah, yep,
yeah.
AFL Daily. So once a week, I'll be on twice this week. So I've actually really enjoyed that. We've ended up going with a little bit of a rotation of
Hmm.
hosts over the last year and a bit, and it's been good fun to expand my skills because I don't feel overly comfortable hosting, if I'm being honest. But it's been great to, yeah, learn a bit more about that and expand it a bit more and work with a guy like Damo who's been doing it for a very long time and has great little pointers here and there. So, yep, you can tune into that.
Terrific.
Normally on a Thursday morning in Australia, it'll be
Hmm.
the non-Victorian edition with myself and Nathan Schmuck from Perth. But
Right.
I've jumped on with Damo a bit early this year, and we've done a couple of Wednesdays. So, yeah, you can yeah, have a listen to that podcast
And
if you've
Ned
got
Edwards
15
as
or 20
well.
minutes in the morning.
Yep. I listened to
Yep,
it. I
Nat.
listened to it quite a bit. Yeah.
I love this, Craig. I love
Yeah.
the fact
Yeah.
that I've jumped on this podcast with you. AFL Daily probably only went into people's feeds 3 or 4 hours ago, and you've listened to it on the
Yeah.
other side of the world. It's amazing.
Yeah. I did. Yep. And I had a second one primed up that I was listening to. I was listening to, well, actually the one from the previous day on, the No Excuses for North, which
Yep.
they this, and I've mentioned this on other episodes, so I can't hide from it. That is my club that I think is going to shock some people this year and be this year's Hawthorn. I think
Yeah,
North
that's a big call.
might make that big jump.
Yeah, I mean, it'd surprise me if, well, I mean, Hawthorn surprised me last year. It would
Hmm.
surprise me if they made that jump,
Yeah.
but they're certainly the sort of the little under the radar um, team with the players that have got enough experience and enough talent, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
ultimately. Guys like, hopefully, I just hope that George Wardlaw doesn't go down this injury path where we don't get to see the best of him because he's just like very early in his career, injury setback. And I love
Yeah.
watching him play. So I
Yeah.
hope he gets on the field. Sheasel's amazing. McKerchid showed so much last year. Larky's a terrific full forward. So
I mean,
there is a lot to be excited about.
they brought in some serious veterans this
They
year to help,
did.
with, I mean, with
Yeah.
Caleb Daniel and Darling and Luke Parker,
Yeah.
and,
They
I
will
just,
help, no doubt.
I don't know if you can rely on them for, 23 games in a year, but
No.
certainly, helping out at training and such. And, Luke Parker can, hopefully, hopefully help some of these younger guys, figure out how to intimidate their opponents at midfield.
Yep. And on a serious note, you can't. It's hard for us to put a value on that, isn't it? Like we might only
Yeah.
see them, like you said, you're not going to see them for 23 games. We might only see them for 10 or 12
Yeah.
or 16. Who knows? But
And
surely, I mean, it's one thing Alistair Clarkson, the coaches, telling their players what to do, but hearing it from their
yeah.
peers,
Yeah.
totally different context. So
Yeah. And
they are terrific
and I,
additions, I think.
I think well, Jack Darling is certainly well into his career. Going to probably play his 300th game. He only has to play two this year. Only
Mm,
at 300 games.
yeah.
I think that he is going. Nick Larkey is already a pretty darn good key forward.
Yes.
I think Nick Larkey is going to take a leap this year, having Jack Darling playing across from
Yeah.
him and just taking a little bit of
So
pressure off of him.
yeah, so do I. I mean, I think everyone rates Nick Larkey, but I've seen him not many. I just talked 10 minutes ago, I mentioned Sam Collins.
Yeah.
Very rarely gets beaten. Nick Larkey has had the better of him a couple of times
Hmm.
in the past couple of years. And I remember watching Nick thinking, boy, you have to be, not many forwards can outdo Sam Collins one on one, and he's one of the few.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure what it is about the way he plays, but it troubles Sam Collins. So yeah, really, really rate him as a key forward.
Well, Michael, again, I want to thank you for your time this morning. So this has been a great deal of fun, and I wish your clubs all the best, unless they're playing the Cats, like in the opening round here in just a couple of
About two
weeks with
weeks.
with your with your with your Lions. Hope a rematch of the prelim final. Hopefully, a different result. Yeah, but we shall see.
That's
We shall see.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah,
I've
it's going to be a lot of
honestly
fun.
really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, you got a great
Thank you.
product. So,
Thank
mate,
you so much.
thoroughly enjoyed the chat. So, good luck with. I know
I
you've got a
appreciate
couple
it.
more to go to
Yep.
finish off your preseason
Well, and I've
previews,
got
and
like six that are recorded that I need to get edited and get it out still. So I've got 10. I've got 10 out. I've got six more to go. And I've been joking with people that maybe I'm just doing them in the order that I'm predicting the ladder, which is not the case because, well, you know what though?
who
I've
knows?
got Carlton may be going last, and they're still. I'm still really frustrated with Carlton because back in 2021. That when Melbourne won the grand
Hmm.
final.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay. I'd had a guest on who had played on Melbourne's last premiership team in
Oh,
1964.
wow. Yep.
His son lives here in the U.S. So
Oh,
I had his dad on the podcast for an interview, and SEN reaches out because they wanted to have him on the show. They wanted to get him on the show before the grand final. It's great, and they said we want to get you on as well. And I thought, fantastic, free
yep.
advertising. And I was going to be on a Thursday morning. I got up at like 4 o'clock in the morning my time, so I'm up ready to go. I get on, I check my email. We've had to bump you from coming on today because Carlton hired Michael Voss as their senior coach. They couldn't friggin' wait until the following Monday after the grand final to
Oh,
do that.
no.
So
Oh, no.
so yeah, I just so you know I
You're
came to the
cursing
game
Michael
so
Voss's name every
yeah.
time you hear it.
I came to the game so late in life that I don't hate any team at all. I love to give Richmond a hard time because because Demo would always complain about having to make the trip to Marvel Stadium every once in a while,
Brutal
from
couple of
Punt Road.
kilometers, that
Yeah,
is.
that that 5 mile or 5 kilometer wide crop
Five
filled
kilometers.
river, and the 20 miles of desert after that. And the last thing that Gill did before he left was he put in 200-meter wide piece of blacktop covered with broken Lego pieces that all Tiger supporters have to walk across barefoot to get to Marvel. So
Yeah, you've got it, mate. It's a brutal 3 mile
yeah.
trek from
Well,
Punt
that's
Road
the thing
to
is that when I do finally get to Australia, I am going to go to Punt Road, and I am going to make the walk to Marvel Stadium. I may even live stream it,
I was gonna say you
on
should
my
document that.
podcast and document
Yeah,
it and just send
should document it.
tag Richmond on it and go, see, it can be done.
Funny bit
Or
of audio, funny
yeah,
bit of content that'd be.
yeah. Okay, well, man, I don't want to keep you any longer, but have a
Thanks, Craig.
great day. You bet. Cheers. All right, Michael, thanks so very much for sitting down to chat with me today, sir. I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I enjoy listening to your work over on AFL.com.au as well as reading your posts up on the website as well. Now, folks, don't forget you can find everything about my podcast over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. Again, I do hope you'll subscribe to the mailing list. If you want to help out the podcast, a review would be a huge help. Tell your friends and neighbors about it as well. And if you want to help out financially, if you'd like to do that, you can certainly click on that Buy Me a Coffee button. That would be awesome if you did that. Helps keep the lights on here, including this one right up above me. And I thank you for that. Give me a follow on my socials as well. And if you've got an idea for a great guest, I love telling stories and sharing the stories of footy fans from all over the world. And I'd love to share your story if at all possible, or if you know somebody who's played the game at a high level or has just a great tale to tell about their involvement with footy. I would love to share that and love to give you the opportunity to have this be the place where you share that with other footy loving people. So again, give me a follow at Yank_on over on X, Yank on the Footy or Yank on the Footy podcast on Instagram and on Facebook. You can also find me on LinkedIn as well, and you can reach me by email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from you. So, folks, look out for one another. Check up on your friends. Make sure they're okay. If you need to talk to somebody, don't hesitate to reach out, okay? The world is a significantly better place with you in it, all right? So please reach out and talk to somebody, okay? And as always, ladies and gentlemen, those numbers are in the show notes of every single episode of the podcast if you need to talk to someone. And as I was just starting to say there, as always, ladies and gents, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I will catch you later. And this has been episode 376 of A Yank on the Footy. Again, my socials are over on my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I do hope you'll give me a follow. I hope you'll get on that mailing list. I'm trying to get to 200 subscribers on my email list. I'm getting close to that. Also, if you'd like to subscribe over on my YouTube channel as well, I have that linked on my show notes as well. I'm getting as many episodes up there as quickly as I possibly can as well. Still working on developing my video skills. And again, what are you going to do with this face? You can only do so much with it. All right, folks. Until next time, cheers. Bye-bye.